One of the most important teachings of the Jewish tradition is found in the ethical tractate of the Mishnah Pirkei Avot, which reads, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, lo ataven chorin lihibatel mimena. You are not required to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. You are not required to complete the work of making this world a more just and lovelier world, but you're never free from working for that goal. It's an awesome responsibility working to improve the world, our society, civilization. It's a monumental, overwhelming task. So our sages have taught us, do what you can, day by day, small step by small step, and you will make a profound difference for good for many, many people. In the rabbinic tradition, this has nothing to do with tikkun olam. The rabbis never speak of repairing the world. They always speak of improving the world. And instead of tikkun olam, the phrase in Pirkei Avot and in our daily prayers is gmilut chasadim, doing acts of love and kindness for others. Gmilut chasadim is the way in which all of us, step by step, can improve the lives of others, care for their needs, and protect them from loneliness. Gmilut chasadim is done through acts of righteousness, what in Hebrew is called tzedakah, from the word tzedek, righteous. In English, the word tzedakah tends to be translated as charity. But charity really doesn't express the nuanced meaning of the word tzedakah. In English, charity is something you give voluntarily if you want to. It's an act of kindness, to be sure, but it's not an obligation. In contemporary America, charity is something given if we want to. And it's almost always about only money. In the Jewish tradition, tzedakah is a mitzvah. It's a commandment. It's an obligation. It's a responsibility. It's part of what it means to be a tzaddik, a righteous, loving, kind, and lovely human being. In the Jewish tradition, one does not give tzedakah, one does tzedakah. It's the most powerful way of improving the lives of others. It's a sacred way of improving the world and all that is therein. Sometimes tzedakah is acts of milut chasadim, doing good for others. And yes, in the Jewish tradition, the mitzvah of tzedakah is also about money. The Jewish tradition is very practical when it comes to living in this real world. It takes money to feed oneself and one's family, for shelter and clothing for oneself and one's children's. It takes money to care for the health of one's family. It takes money to educate one's children. And it takes money to be able to afford for oneself and one's family the pleasures of life. Metaphorically, money even helps if one wants to have a chicken every Shabbat. And so financial tzedakah is an important mitzvah in the Jewish tradition. There are many, many Jews who are most generous in their tzedakah. Some are not, but many, many are. Often those who have, tend to give less. Some with wealth have trouble doing tzedakah. And so when one comes across a human being, a Jew, who uses his wealth to enhance the lives of the many in need, and who does so without arrogance, without pretense, who engages in tzedakah because he can't do otherwise, but to help others, to improve the world,
when one comes across a human being, a Jew, who elevates others, not for public accolade, but simply because it's who one is. It's about the goodness of soul and about a profound love for one's fellow Jew and one's fellow man and woman. Then one is in the presence of a true tzaddik, who quietly but assuredly must be appreciated and thanked and honored. For such a tzaddik is not so arrogant as to think it's possible to complete the work, but a tzaddik never stops trying. Harvey Kaylie, Zichrono Livracha, was a tzaddik. His wife Gloria, ever at his side throughout life, who carries him with her in her heart and soul, is also a tzaddikah. Together, their names appear virtually throughout the Jewish world and in the secular world as well, as individuals using their good fortune to improve the lives of others, in some instances to literally save the lives of others. And Gloria Kaylie will tell you without hesitation, she learned it all from Harvey. Harvey Kaylie was a most unusual, fine, principled human being and a deeply committed Jew. In his beautifully written memoir, From Zeta to Zeta, which has moving chapters written by family, friends, and colleagues of Harvey Kaylie, all of whom proved marvelous insights into his rare soul. One learns how a son from a poor Jewish family in Brooklyn rose through brilliant intellect and hard work to entrepreneurial success, to financial success with his international company, Mini Circuits, and how he then used that success to help others. Harvey Kaylie was not the wealthiest Jewish philanthropist. He was hardly well known throughout American Jewry. But Harvey Kaylie, together with Gloria, did as much good or more than any other Jewish philanthropist of our generation. And their combined passion for Israel and the Jewish people was and remains unmatched. And to my everlasting good fortune, Harvey Kaylie came to appreciate JBS. And no one has done more to make JBS a reality than Harvey and Gloria Kaylie. I had the privilege to know Harvey, to spend time with him, to experience his very special quality of soul. And what may be most important of all, Harvey did more than just give money. Harvey Kaylie inspired. I hope you can appreciate how unique a quality it is in a human being to be able to inspire while helping financially. Very often when one receives tzedakah, the overwhelming feelings are gratitude to be sure, but also indebtedness, even discomfort to a certain degree. But when the Kaylies did their tzedakah, it was done in such a wondrous way. One felt inspired to do, to create, to heal, to improve the lives of others. What a unique, wondrous gift to be able to inspire at the same time that one helps financially. Of the myriad, literally myriad, worthwhile initiatives Harvey and Gloria supported. And they didn't just support, they made possible through the Kaylie Foundation. Harvey and Gloria supported City College, Harvey's alma mater, Weill Cornell Medical College, Yeshiva University, United Hatzalah, the emergency ambulance team in Israel, Ezer Mitzion, which saves lives through a donor blood bank that provides stem cell transplants, to the OHEL Children's Home and Family Service. One of the many that stands out among all is OHEL's Camp Kaylie, which, by the way, the Kaylies never asked to be named for them, but it is. And Camp Kaylie is this innovative summer program where the transcending principle is kindness. At Camp Kaylie, which has the first and transcending things that kids learn is to be kind. And Camp Kaylie accepts children who are dealing with health challenges, both physical, sometimes emotional. They're all accepted, they're all loved. And at Camp Kaylie, kids learn to care for one another, to be comfortable with those who are different, that it's never acceptable to be cruel, not in word, not in deed, and that to be a human being, a mensch, is to be open and embracing of the other, no matter how different the other may be. Camp Kaylie is the perfect symbol of who and what Harvey Kaylie and Gloria Kaylie are all about, and who and what they were together. For them, it was all about the individual person, and how person by person they could make a real difference in people's lives. Harvey Kaylie passed away on May 30th, 2018. He was 80 years old, and he was still young of spirit. Harvey built a life of merit, of honor, of kindness, generosity, without the trappings of so many in the philanthropic community who make their giving all about themselves, and who often, sadly, are not lovely people at all. Harvey Kaylie was simply lovely. And there's no way to exaggerate how much he will be missed as a father, grandfather of 8, as a friend, colleague, as a mentor, and as a profoundly committed Jew. Harvey and Gloria brought 2 exceptional daughters into this world, Roberta and Alicia. And Alicia Kaylie Jacobi, whom I've had the joy of getting to know, is an absolute reflection of her parents' values. Living in Israel, she's made Aliyah. Alicia is the driving force behind an initiative called Our 6 Million, a candle for every name. It commemorates the memory of the murdered in the Holocaust by lighting a single candle for each single person. I'm so pleased that Alicia joins us now. Thank you for being here, and it's hard to know exactly what one says to a daughter about the contribution her father made. It's not for me to say, Mazal Tov to you for him, but in some way I'm going to say it through you. Mazal Tov to you, your family, for the work you do, for the loveliness you are, and for who your parents are. And Yash Koach, and for everybody who even knew your father a smidgen, we say thank you. Thank you, darling.
Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Thank you for presenting both my parents in a light which is so appropriate to them. And I have to say, you really hit it on the head. They were.
By the way, what did I say that in some way you said, oh, he understands who my father was most? What did you hear that touched you? What is it about your father that was so special that you want to make sure we understand, and that will be transcending forever, Alicia?
So if I have to pick just one facet, because he's so multifaceted, I would say that it's his values. And the reason I pick values is because his values emanated through everything that he touched, whether it was in business, in philanthropy, in family, in friendship, in guidance. It was always very value-oriented. He went full blast ahead with all his energy, with all his zest, to making whatever he could better. He wanted to improve, and I think probably in answer to your question, to improve the world, to make it better. He knew that he wouldn't change the whole world.
Of course.
But he wanted to make an impact, and he wanted that impact to continue after he was no longer here for many decades, before he felt that he was getting closer to the end. He believed that it was his job to make this world better in any and every way that he could, and to do that with all his energy and with all his strength and his brains.
Mm-hmm. Can you give me an example of one or two of the principles and the values you feel reflect who your parents have been your entire life?
So if we apply it to philanthropy, then I would say that he didn't consider, my parents don't consider themselves as donors. They consider themselves as partners. And a partner is very different from a donor, because a donor, you always want to put your best foot forward and hide all the dirty laundry. And when you're a partner, then you can clean that laundry together. And he was so capable of making improvements in every facet. He just had this knack where he knew how to push the focus in the right direction in every industry, in every, no matter what the subject was. And so he was able to help these organizations to become better organizations by giving them the focus and the direction that they needed. My father, as a child, he lived with his zaidi. The whole family then would live in the same tenement building. And his grandfather was the gabbai at the shtibel. And my father's job was to find the little pieces of coal in the furnace that his zaidi donated to the shtibel for heat. And he hated that job because he said when he sneezed it was black. But it ingrained in him his focus on work, his focus on giving, his focus on you can always give. There's no excuse for not giving, no matter what your circumstances are. Everyone can give. But he appreciated hard work. So if an organization is working hard and they're exerting efforts, for example, getting 100% contributions is not easy. It's demanding. But when you have those results and everybody feels a part of it and everybody is a part of it, that's improving where you started from. It's leveraging the donation exponentially. And that was the objective. So if I have to pick one for organizations of philanthropy, I would say that it's leveraging the donation even more to have a stronger impact with the same amount of funding. So I could tell you that I warn new organizations before they start working with us and tell them that they will not enjoy working with us in the beginning, and that if they get past that hurdle, then they'll really be very, very happy. And not everybody gets past that hurdle, and that's okay. But to be a real partner is I think, is the biggest contribution, because you're there for them and when you need them.
I found your father and your mother to be unusual in their way of doing tzedakah, in that I said it never seemed to be about them. That was not your father. And I'm not talking about Mark Gollop. I'm talking about every single person who was helped by your mother and father. They all feel the same way. They all feel, you use the word that they're partners. But what I found so remarkable is that normally people with the kind of ability to have an impact as your parents have, it tends to be, again, all about themselves.
I do understand what you're talking about, but I have to say that without JBS, without you doing what you're doing, without Ezra Mitzion getting the blood samples from all the soldiers, without United Hatzalah getting the ambucycles and training all the medics, none of this would happen. You could have all the money in the world and it's not going to do anything. So it truly is a partnership, and it's not just a saying we're partners, it's true. So no one is better than anybody else, and we give a lot of credit to all these organizations who are doing the hard work, who are making it happen. So the foundation, my parents, are enablers, but they're not doing it. You guys are doing the hard work, and that's appreciated.
First impression that I have of Harvey Kaylie is his humility. Harvey was happy to stand on the side. He didn't need the microphone. He didn't need the camera. He wanted the success to be whatever it was about. His engineering mind, his scientific mind absorbed everything. But he did not have to be at the center. And that's a very unusual trait for many people.
His humility was the first thing that impressed me. We had the opportunity to spend, on occasion, to vacation together for 3 or 4 days, and we would just sit, talk, and we would enjoy and be discussing matters, situations that were amazing. And I was very impressed with him. His ability to, for example, create a company that he did from zero to a magnificent company. And I'm telling you, I was in awe of what he did, and he did it with the help of Gloria, and it's astounding. This was refreshing and something that I learned from.
You know, I adore your mother. And I knew your mother before I knew your father and before he was part of JBS. And one of the things I love about your mother is some of the things she says that expresses what her values are and what your father's were. And the line, and it's in his book as well, the line that I love the most, I now use it wherever I can. It's not about valuables, it's about values. You must have heard that also many times in your life.
Yes.
There are few things as true as that. You would want that to be true for people. It's not about valuables, it's not about things. It's about the values that shape who you are and what you want to do with whatever you have in life. Yes?
So, for example, my father would say that if you buy a beautiful, expensive car, so you'll really enjoy it in the beginning, and it has value quotes in the beginning. But in 10 years from now, that car is pretty much dead. It has no more value. But when you invest in a person and you make their life better, that just keeps on going for generations, because you've changed that person. And that change will be reflected in how they bring up their children, and how their children will bring up their children. So it's never ending. He would call it the ripple effect, that when you throw a stone into the water and it keeps on skipping, and then you see the circles keep on going. And that was the goal.
From my perspective, he would select a company that, whether it was being run right or wrong, a philanthropy, it first had to have a purpose, a positive purpose, and then he would inject his method of operating such a philanthropy, which was incredible, where he had to, as I think Alicia said, he became a partner. He made sure that it made economic sense and it would be perpetuated without having to have a lot of other inputs.
Harvey was a man of values, not only valuables, he was a man of worth and not only wealth. And what was unique about Harvey as a philanthropist, that he was involved in every detail, in every nuance, whether it was supporting, his magnanimous support of the Hampton Synagogue, so many other worthwhile charities and institutions, both in the United States and in Israel. But he created a holy partnership with that beneficiary. It was not, here's the gift and report back to me in a few years. He was involved on a daily basis in terms of overseeing that charity, making sure that his gift was being channeled not only to improve the institution, but in what way would his gift inspire others to give?
The question is asked, there's a famous question asked, if Hashem created the world in 6 days and he rested on the seventh, what has he done in the last 5,700 years? So there's a midrash that answers that Hashem has been busy, mizavik zivugim. Hashem creates matches, people, couples. I was privileged to be asked by Harvey to write an introduction to the book From Zaidi to Zaidi. My introduction describes Harvey as a shadchan, just as God is, as a matchmaker. You've talked about all the organizations that the Kaylies have helped literally throughout the world. Jewish, secular, all types of organizations. Harvey brings people together. Harvey brings organizations together. Harvey and Gloria bring groups together. They don't only challenge you financially, matching dollars, they also always challenge you to be better than you could possibly be. They make a shadchan between you and yourself. They make a shadchan between you and other organizations. They make a shadchan between their money and other people's money. Harvey explained to me what's his concept of charity. His vision of charity is not to help you, not to teach you, but that you should also teach. He wants to teach his grandchildren so they can teach their grandchildren. That's a gift in perpetuity.
How old are you?
15.
You just graduated middle school?
Yes.
You're going to start high school soon? How well did you know your grandfather?
Well,
Lavee, what was special about your grandfather, not as a grandfather, but as a person? As you look at him as a person, what made your grandfather special?
his values, what he believed in
What did he believe in?
a lot of things. But helping others was, I think, the major thing he believed in. And showing it, and actually acting, and not just thinking, but doing a lot of things.
How was he as a grandfather?
Very good.
How?
Last year, for example, we came in a lot, and when he had his procedure, we would play every night Monopoly together, every day. It was very nice sitting all together.
You were very lucky to have him as a grandfather. He was lucky to have you as a grandson.
Thank you.
So what was he like as a father to you and your sister? And was he busy all the time? You never saw him? Did you feel he was present? And what was his tone? Was he a hard father, a soft father? What?
All of the above. So as children, his time was really dedicated to the office, to building up the company, which was his passion. Some would say that he was a workaholic, but he says that a workaholic is someone who's running away from something, and he was running too. He was creating, he was building, which is what he loved always. So as children, it's really my mother who was bringing us up on a daily basis, and she was there for all the parent-teachers evenings and so forth. And however, having said that, my father was always there when you needed him. So like when you had a challenge, he was able to just come through and just figure it all out and guide you to getting where you needed to go. He also enjoyed teaching. He loved to teach. And he taught both my sister and I how to write. And he would go over our homework with us and say, well, why do you need that word? What's the purpose of that word? Until we finally learned that you have no extra words. You have to be very precise, very exact, and minimize your words as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. For him, getting down to the core of a situation and realizing the truth or analyzing the truth, whether this is worthy of doing something or not worthy of doing something, where the truth became very important.
In the world of philanthropy, documentation could mean literally a 20-page application, a 30-page program summary with a tremendous amount of data. With Harvey, I learned two things in the conversation. Being prepared means getting to the point. And documentation meant with Harvey a one-page summary. Harvey Kaylie was looking for a summary, get to the point. Tell me what's going on. Tell me what you're looking for. He will decide what questions to ask. It's a very valuable lesson in conversations and in life, not only in donor relations.
As far as his tone, he was demanding in a fatherly manner. So it wasn't like a tough boss. He was demanding to make us better. It was all about us. It was all about teaching us, for us to become stronger, better, more independent people, to be able to function on our own, to have the values that we felt were appropriate for our life, which is a big deal because a lot of parents have a direction for their kids that they'd like them to take. And I think one of the strongest attributes of my father was that he really believed in laissez-faire in that manner, that you should do what you want to do. And he would say, for example, in his book, that this is his book, and we all need to be the authors of our own volume. And he gave us freedom to do that. He gave me the stability and the foundation to dare. He taught me that someone who fails is someone who doesn't try. But if you try and it doesn't work, it's not failure. It means you need to try a different way. It means maybe you need to change your goal. But to dare to do, that's the big deal. And in order to do that, he taught us to look at the goal. You need to know where you want to go. But in order to get there, it's very overwhelming. And so most people would say, well, that will be too difficult, so I'm not going to try. And he would say, look at what's in front of you. The first few steps. The first few steps are too scary. Take the first step. And that's how you build it, one step at a time. And on the way, you might realize that the goal should actually be changed. And that's okay too, that's smart. So it's always reinventing where you want to go and looking forward for the long term, but also working on the short term with a lot of energy and focus.
The concept of Camp Kaylie is that you bring kids together who are called typical and kids with disabilities, kids with developmental disabilities, kids on the autism spectrum, kids with emotional issues, Down syndrome, kids with severe anxiety, kids with eating disorders. You bring them together and they spend a 4-week, boys, 4-week girls, together. Not just in a cabin, not just have a table in the dining room. They sleep in the same cabin. They do all the activities together. They're in the lake together. They're in the swimming pool together. They're on the baseball and soccer and tennis and hockey courts together. One part of the day in learning and studying, everyone is in a group at their level. The rest of the day is integrated, inclusive. That's the concept. So that children, as they grow up, if you're a child learning about disabilities, people that are different, you will be more tolerant as an adult. And possibly as a parent, if you have a child with disabilities. So we brought the concept of Harvey and Gloria Kaylie in the home in Boca. And we talked about the concept. And we thought that we were very smart. We thought we had a really good idea. We talked about it. And Harvey and Gloria supported it. They liked it. We had already formed a relationship over many years. Harvey and Gloria knew about OHEL, the work that we do, through Marvin, Harvey's brother. And Harvey's sitting there absorbing it. And he takes it like 50 miles faster. We come with this brilliant vision. And Harvey says, that's good. But how about the following? He's now challenging us to think in a whole new way. Harvey added a component to it. He said, well, you're there July and August. What are you going to do with the camp the other months? It's not a winterized camp, but you've got May, June, August, September, nice season. How about if you also open it up as respite for parents who have a child with a disability, that they can come up, they can use the facilities during the summer, before the summer, rent it out to groups, increase your revenue, help out on the business side of it. Harvey was compassionate, emotional, with a business sense. And he just expanded the concept that we came with. And Camp Kaylie now is so many different things to so many people.
I can't compare myself to my father because he's a giant. But he is my benchmark. You know, there's different ways of doing things. You know, you could take the easier route or the more difficult route. You could go 90% and say it'll probably just be enough. When it's those important junctions, then I think of him and I push myself to go the 110%. Because when you shoot for 110%, you have a chance of reaching 100.
How about your mother and father together? He wasn't alone in this. It was a joint enterprise. It was an extraordinary couple that ended up doing what they did. What was the dynamic, first of all, as you were a child growing up? What was that dynamic between your father and mother? And as an adult, as you look back on their marriage, how did they do together?
They were true partners. And partners don't have to do everything together. But they have to be aligned with the goals. They have to be aligned with, again, the values. The values were always uniform. They always believed in tzedakah when they didn't have. They did. They always gave. My parents together, my mother supported him when he was opening the business. I mean, he was an engineer. He could have done well in the industry, and he did, and he left. And at the bank, they said to my mother, well, when are you going to start putting money in and not just taking out? And for my mother, that was like not a good sign. But she supported him, and they knew that he could always go back to industry if that's what they decided. And she supported him, and she worked with him. Actually, she worked for him, not with him. It was always clear that he was the boss. That was for all of us. And they were a team. Throughout the years, they were a team. They all had their separate responsibilities, but they were aligned in their values, and that really pushed them forward together.
There's a picture behind you of Harvey and Gloria Kaylie that happens to be at Camp Kaylie. It became a prominent picture. I've seen it in so many different settings, and it's in the back of the book, From Zaidi to Zaidi. And the picture is Harvey and Gloria, both smiling beautifully, standing together, embracing. That's really the story of Harvey and Gloria Kaylie. Harvey and Gloria are together. They were always at Camp Kaylie together. It's Kaylie Day. It's not Harvey and Gloria Kaylie Day. It's Kaylie Day because it's Harvey, Gloria, Camp Kaylie. It's simply Kaylie Day. Gloria, in her way, is making an impact, always has, and leaving an imprint. It's Kaylie. You can say Harvey, you can say Gloria, but to us, it's Kaylie.
You cannot say Harvey alone. I've always said Harvey and Gloria. They were one entity. This is very important. Not knowing who Gloria is, my wife and Gloria became very close unintentionally, just close. And then one day, Gloria comes to me and says, Albert, I want you to meet Harvey. And I met Harvey through Gloria. I think she was prepping me or analyzing me before I met Harvey. It was an entity, one entity. I could never say Harvey alone. It was Harvey and Gloria. I think Gloria had an incredible influence on Harvey, and Harvey had a great influence on Gloria. And what I found or saw was that the amount of respect each had for one another, the respect element was amazing, really amazing.
Gloria and Harvey were the most dynamic team. First, as a couple, the love, the great love that they shared, the respect that they exhibited for each other. They worked for many, many years together, not only professionally, but also in terms of philanthropy, in terms of their abiding friendships in the community. And Gloria, she's an amazing, amazing woman. There isn't a Shabbat where either privately or publicly I don't thank her for her support, for her generosity, just for being there. And Gloria is so proud how she expresses her pride, not only in terms of her children and grandchildren, but her dedication to the Jewish community. Gloria is a post-denominational Jew. She doesn't see labels. I mean, I think one of the things that attracted both her and Harvey to the Hampton Synagogue, I've often defined my rabbinate as being the rabbi of an Orthodox synagogue with a conservative congregation and a Reform membership. That's how eclectic we are. And Gloria and Harvey particularly enjoy the fact that our community is non-judgmental. Everyone is welcome. We have this very big wide tent. And together, they had the privilege of making such an impact in such an indelible fashion on the Jewish community, which I know that Gloria will continue. Now it's under her mantle. It's going to be her leadership. And Gloria is her own person. And Gloria knows exactly what she would like to do, in what ways she would like to impact the Jewish community. And watch out. Gloria is going to make quite a difference. That's my prediction for Gloria Kaylie.
Your father also dealt later in life with illness. And there's a chapter in this book written by David Blumenthal, who was not only his cardiologist and larger than that, a doctor who took care of him, and they became very close, and your father was lovely and believed in David very much, and David writes a wonderful chapter in your father's book. But David talks about how when he first met your father, he was, quote, surprisingly ill. And your father dealt with illness for quite a while. And yet he had an ability to cope with illness and to live a life with illness that was extraordinary. Would you talk about that for a moment?
Sure. At the time of the book, I had learned a lot of lessons from my father throughout my life. And I even say that I have a feeling that there's something even the greatest lesson still coming. I need a break. Both my parents are very positive. My father's ability to remain positive despite his illnesses was superhuman. My daughter Shira made him a picture of Super Zadie with his face with a Superman body. In fact, he used that at the hospital when they didn't want to keep him there anymore, but he wanted to stay. He said to the doctor, "You see, that's me, that's Super Zadie, that's me." And she let him stay. So he had this ability to disconnect his physical body from who he was. And he didn't let that affect who he was. He remained demanding, strong, energetic as much as possible, passionate until the last day. That was his focus, to moving forward, to building, to creating, to passion.
Did your father have a sense of humor?
Absolutely, absolutely. At times he was even silly. As a child, I remember we would sometimes be in the car waiting, and he would take any object, maybe a pen that he happened to have in his pocket, and we would play the game Imagination. And he would be very silly with us. But he also developed our imagination at the same time.
He had a perpetual smile, and I never saw him get angry in public, never. And there was always that smile, this reassuring smile, which I really miss.
What are you going to miss about your father the most?
Everything. Even his being demanding. Yes. But with that, as much as I miss him, that's how much I still feel him with me.
What will be your father's enduring legacy?
That's a tough one. I have a feeling we don't know yet. His hope was that he would enable the ability to continue to impact the world in a positive way even after he wasn't here. I don't know in what way it will happen, but I believe that the way he designed it, it will happen.
You know, one of the legacies that a person can have is if somebody says afterwards, you know, what would Harvey and Gloria do? What does Harvey say? What does Gloria think? That may be one of the best gifts that you can give to a person, is to speak about them, think about them when they're not in front of you. Not when you're meeting with them, not when you're hosting them or lunching them, but when no one is around, when no one hears anything. What's their concept?
Well, I view charities in a different way. I vet them in a different way. I think that that process came about by knowing Harvey, and I think that Harvey's influence was on everybody who met him and truly got to know him. He had an influence on.
I was so blessed to have Harvey Kaylie in my life. And to this day, whenever I'm making a important, significant decision, I can hear his voice and guiding me and inspiring me, to take it. Always saying, Rabbi, has to be a win-win. Rabbi, we have to think out of the box. They don't make people like Harvey Kaylie. They just don't make people like him today.
People have spoken of the fact that he was multifaceted, but every facet was interesting and true. And we would spend hours talking and just enjoying each other, and always leaving, at least I felt leaving Harvey having gained something, a positive feeling and something that I could aspire to be in any way possible, the way he is or was. He loved the state of Israel. He was passionate about it. He may have not been a halachic man, but he was an absolute Micha man, the prophet Micha man. And this is what I really appreciated about him. And he was never holier than thou or this and that. He was a pure giving individual, purely giving.
Harvey understood that casual Jews become Jewish casualties. And Harvey was involved in so many issues and concerns impacting the Jewish community, the American Jewish community, the state of Israel. It's no secret, Harvey was my confidant. Harvey was my source of strength and inspiration. He was my go-to guy in terms of this phenomenal, unique, singular community we built in the Hamptons. He was my lay partner. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't feel that loss. Since his passing, I still can feel that aching sense of emptiness, that unrequited yearning for that which can never be again. I miss him. I miss him terribly.
Harvey's gone. Harvey passed away. Gloria is here. We continue to use the conversations, the concepts, the ideas. We didn't call Harvey and Gloria to talk about it. Boom! You see something? Do it. That's a legacy.
He, for me, epitomized what the prophet, the Lavee Micha, had in mind. Micha's final question was, what does God expect from you? Justice, charity, and humility. And this was Harvey. This was purely Harvey. The sense of justice, the sense of charity, and his humility was astounding.
I'm trying not to be too emotional here, but every time that Gloria walks into shul, there's always this big smile on my face. I cannot tell you how blessed I feel to have had Harvey and continue to have Gloria as a part of my life. I mean, they really, really have made such a profound difference in my life personally. They've been such great supporters. They're so loyal, and I'm blessed. I'm blessed. This is a great blessing that God gave me.
So you heard a lot of people speak about your father.
It's always beautiful. It is. I think the big deal is that the people who are recognizing them are their people. It's the people who care about values. It's the people who have similar objectives and similar goals. And I think that's the blessing. I'll just add that I feel that I'm very blessed that Hashem picked me to be the daughter of my mother and my father. I feel very blessed.
Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the memory of the righteous will forever be a blessing.